don't mind the term African American. I don't want to be called African American.
Why is that?
I'm not African.
My grandmother was a full-blooded Iroquois.
As you're aware, in 1912, Dr. Walter Plecker became the first director of the Bureau of Vital Statistics. But he was part of the eugenics movement, which was a movement about creating one race of people, which was white, and everything else was put in a pot, as Tina Marie would say, and stir it up and call colored.
But basically, when he was the registrar for the Bureau of Vital Records, he changed the names of Indian people in Southampton County.
Exactly.
Their race from Indian to Negro or colored.
Well, it was referred to as colored.
The most significant thing here is to reveal the much greater amounts of Native American ancestry that are present within the African American population than most people realize, because they might have been misled by the use of terms like mulatto and also people of color.
Some of us started here in this land. Everybody wasn't brought over from Africa.
It comes as a great shock to discover that Gary Cooper killing off the Indians when you were rooting for Gary Cooper, that the Indians were you. That the Indians were you.
About our lineage. Who are we? We're Black Americans. I can trace my family back, my ancestors back to the 1700s. Okay? So we're Black Americans. We have been here since the founding of the country. That matters, does it not? Does it matter that our parents, our ancestors were here since the founding, since the 1600s, since the 1700s? Is that relevant? Is that significant? Yes, I think it is. Well, I mean, my ancestors didn't slave and sweat and, toil and all that hard work that they did for Joanne Reed to have a job. She's from the Congo. They worked for Black Americans to have jobs. They did all that for Black Americans, not people from the Congo who are first-generation Americans. Not even Kamala Harris, who's Indian American and Jamaican.
Right.
My ancestors didn't work for Kamala Harris to have these benefits. They worked for Black Americans to have benefits. I think even Obama is not even a Black American. This is why using color, the skin color, is not sufficient. It's confusing.
Right.
And this is why I say white Americans and Black Americans have been in America the longest since its founding. And that is significant. That matters. That history matters. And so this is why, and I don't know why so many, and I want to get into this issue about Black women, Black American women supporting. I know it's nonprofit, but Black American women don't understand most of them, some do, but most of them don't understand. They think everything is about skin color. And that's a superficial analysis of the situation. They're not looking at the history. They don't know the history. And they're just so wedded to the political left position, embracing all of their policies. And their policies have been detrimental to Black America. They need to get away from that embrace of all these policies that are the detriment. So what I'm thinking, they're not doing their homework. They're not reading this cast your bucket where you are. Cast down your bucket where they're not reading this history. They're being superficial. They're just watching the television and going along with what the politicians say. That is not sufficient. About our
I just want to say hello.
My bad. We do this at least once a week. How y'all doing? Get up in here and get the likes up on the video, honey. We got a show today. Yes, we do. We got a few things to discuss. Shout out to everybody in the building. Y'all make sure y'all like the video, subscribe to the channel. If you're new, you are now here for Educational Friday. And I was so riled up by today's live this morning. I said, I want to do something rebellion. You know what I'm saying? Something very, very, type stuff. You know what I'm saying? And so I had already had this brother in my, I hope I'm able to download this. All right, that's fine. I had already had this brother in my list of people to talk about Robert F. Williams, and I'm trying to send myself these pictures, and we're gonna talk about him. This was one of the brothers in the South in the 60s that actually went up against the power structure and literally went up against the government and literally had black people out there saying death or dishonor. We gonna fight till we die. We gonna die about it, and it is what it is. And ain't no and had people. It was so bad he had to flee the doggone Cuba, where he was given asylum by Fidel Castro. Now let me say this: we are told Fidel Castro and all them people just some horrible people, and I'm not saying that they're great people. But whenever the government tell you somebody's bad, I'm telling you, you need to start looking at them and squinting your eyes. Because my thing is this: if Fidel Castro was so bad, why was he giving Robert Williams asylum as far as escaping the government? Because the American government tried to say that he was treasonous. That's what they tried to say. They tried to say, oh, he's practicing treason. And we wasn't going for it. But he ended up having to go to Cuba, where he had a radio station and he was still able to get his message out a time. Okay. But before we get into that, remember, Indians to Negroes. Indians to Negroes. Don't ever forget that. We were classified as Indian before we were classified as Negroes. Before they made us one big Negro, they made us one big Indian. Okay. So don't ever forget that. And since we're on that, and I was thinking about it with the sister who was just saying that my people been here all these years, and we have roots in America, and my people didn't die to give Obama them jobs and whatnot, or whatever the case may be. Hold on, I gotta go get my food. I ordered DoorDash. I didn't have time to what do you call it? To cook. Sorry. So I'm gonna go run really quickly to the door really quickly, get my food. I'll come right back. 1 second.
Somebody said they was looking for the big shit. They don't want to see the big shit. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Goes on. See them clown. Goes on, romantic. Oh, jumping and screaming all over town. Goes on, romantic. Hooray, that morning, hooray, hooray. Go down, romantic. Oh, go down, Comanche, on their way. Go down, romantic. Oh, them boys, they coming from way uptown. Go down, romantic. Oh, they rocking in the old sandpiper line. Go down, romantic. Oh, mighty grand morning when they come through. Go down, romantic. They come down Louisiana Avenue. Go down, romantic. Oh, the tambourine ringing, y'all yell them drum. Go down, romantic. Boom, 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 that's from India. Go down, romantic. I remember that morning, I remember well. Go down, romantic. I was 5'1", I was crazy, man. Go down, romantic. Tell who they hollering about. I tell who they talking about. They ain't on the morning. Ain't giving no warning. Talk on the morning. Ain't giving no warning. They bothering their women. They hiding and screaming. I come from a nation. The whole one creation. I'm walking in public. I'm in that morning. I stop All right, sorry about that. At least I try to keep y'all entertained when I got to get off the live really quickly. But sorry about that, you guys. So remember, before they made us one big Negro, they tried to make us one big Indian. Okay, that was what they called us. Now, mind you, there were thousands of tribes between just in North America alone. But if you count the tribes in the Caribbean and all in those areas, there were thousands and thousands of tribes. Tiff said, "Can you recommend some books?" Girl, I just bought 4 more books. It's so funny that you say that. Hold on. I just bought 4 more books. I'm about to tell you the name of the books I bought. Hold on 1 sec. Nah, I could get it right here. I'm about to tell you the name of the books I just bought. I bought 4 whole new books, and I can't wait to read them. I haven't read these books yet. However, I have ordered wait, no, not that, girl. Ooh, not that. Sorry. I ordered a bunch of them on Amazon.
Was it on here? Hold on, I'm gonna just go get him. Hold on one second. I'm gonna just go get him because I'm glad you asked because I wanted to bring that out too. But I haven't read these books yet, but I'm about to go get it. Hold on one second. I'm back. So I'm glad you brought that up. That's the only reason I stopped the show because I've been wanting to talk about this. I've been ordering books, as you can see. And I want to say that, I think we need to get back into reading. So one of the books that I just recently got is Black People Are Indigenous to the Americas. Research material for the Inquisitive by Kimberly R. Norton. I'm interested in reading this. And this is going to coincide to what we're talking about today. Then I also have Moorish Treaties, Guide to Treaties and Declarations by Bandel El Amin. Okay, I'm going to be reading this because this is all about history when you really think about it. Then, of course, shout out to my brother Top Cats. I haven't gotten a chance to read it, but shout out to Big Chief at BCU, Big Chief University. I recommend I'm Not Black, I'm Indian. Of course, I got to get to that one. But I got this one. Look. Indian history, biography, and genealogy. I think this is dope, especially because we be in here talking about genealogy. You know what I'm saying? Now this book is about the Wampanoag tribe and this woman. I did an overview of it. I didn't read it, but I did an overview of this book, and it's about this woman who was of the Wampanoag tribe and how she had to fight for basically their tribal existence. But remember, they made us one big Indian, and we were never one big Indian. Like they turned around and made us one big Negro, and then not obviously, but the return of the ancient ones. Now, this is about the Washita tribe. These are the Mississippian people, okay? The Mississippian. Robert F. Williams probably descended from that tribe, and we're gonna talk about it. We're going to talk about it. Oh, yes, we're going to talk about it. So shout out to, if y'all into books, I literally just ordered like 4 more books. I've been like seeing stuff and just getting them. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, the girl do be reading. I do be reading. I don't just be on the internet. I be reading too. You know what I'm saying? But anyways, I think this is going to be dope. So, okay. Before we were one big Negro, they want to make us one big Indian. And this is where I was going with this. So George Washington, the clear one, not the Negro one. The clear one, there was a problem, or at least what he deemed to be a problem, an Indian problem in Alabama. So what he did was say he needs to solve this so-called Indian problem. Remember, this is prior to us being Negro, okay? This is our first classification. Indians. Andrew Jackson hated the Indians. His whole goal and mission, the reason he was elected as president is because they knew how much he hated Indians. Okay? Now, because of that, I'll try to get a book list. I'll try to get a book list. If not in the live on the community tab, y'all remind me. Would I do a book club? Of course. When I quit this job, once I'm finished with this job, you're damn right I would. I'll have time. But listen. So look, George Washington wanted to get rid of this Indian problem, just like Andrew Jackson. That's why he was arrested. I mean, not arrested. Well, that too. But that's why he was elected as our president. And remember, y'all freaking out about Trump being a felon. Hell, Andrew Jackson was a murdering felon. At least Trump that we know of ain't popped nobody, but not here nor there. So the civilization plan in the 1791, George Washington, look at what he did. Look at what he did. It says the plan of civilization was a federal development program created in the 1790s to address the so-called Indian problem, the much debated question among American politics about how to go about opening up American Indian lands to Euro-American settlement. Listen. Remember, don't ever forget They coming off the boat. Now they done told us we came off the boat, but they're the ones actually coming off the boat through Ellis Island, okay? So what they're trying to do now is too many of us, but they're trying to find out a way to get our land taken from us and give it to the clear people. That's why they call them Euro-American or whatever. Cure the clear people is what they're trying to do, okay? But it's a problem because we're fighting. This isn't what the movie told y'all. They didn't just round us all up in a bunch of chains and we didn't fight back. We're fighting this whole time, all the way up to Robert Williams, but we'll get there. So it says, the task of implementing the plan of civilization among the Creek Indians of present-day Alabama and Georgia went to federal Indian agent Benjamin Hawkins, who lived among the Creeks from 1796 until his death in 1816. You know what that tells me? Benjamin Hawkins was probably a Negro, probably Indian, and probably treasonous. I told you. It's going to be some of us we're going to have to get rid of too. Okay? So look, boom. It says the state purpose of the plan of civilization was to train Indian men and women in ranching, farming, and cottage industries such as cloth making. That's cap. Okay? The public face of the plan suggests that through such trainings, Indians will become self-sufficient farmers, selling small surpluses on the market. It says the underlying goal of the plan, however, was to settle Indians on small farms and thus force them to give up hunting on their vast territories. So Benjamin Hawkins was telling these Indians, yo, we're going to get y'all some training on this, training on that. It's going to be dope. Whole time, they just wanted to put them all in one little small area and force them to give up their land. Then, as American need for land increased, the Indians, in theory, would be more willing to give up their holdings. The federal and state government, so the thinking went, then could acquire peacefully Indian lands through treaty. Remember, the people that they go and get to sign a lot of these treaties, some of them are us, but some of them ain't us. There's clear people, okay? Acting as chiefs. Some of them are us. Don't ever get that twisted. So look what it says. Hawkins used money in the form of annuities that the Creeks acquired through land cessions to purchase spinning wheels, looms, plows, and cotton gins, blacksmith tools, and other articles he thought necessary to implement the plan of civilization. Now, mind you, we don't need civilization. We already living and doing our own thing. Because of the plan's agricultural base, Hawkins consulted much with the Indian women who in Creek society were in charge of the farming. Hawkins knew that their support would be instrumental to the success of the plan and was pleasantly surprised when they embraced it. Creek women generally were protective of traditional Creek culture, but in the agricultural sphere, they were quite progressive. They had been experimenting with introduced crops throughout the colonial era, and by the end of the 18th century, sweet potatoes and rice were grown along the indigenous corn, bean, and squash they had grown for centuries. They had also begun experimenting with commercial crops such as cotton, and with Hawkins' aid, they intensified those efforts. Creek women also learned spinning and weaving. Even though they could still make cloth by finger weaving indigenous fibers, they preferred European manufactured cloth, which they had been buying since it first became available over a century earlier. A century. Under the plan of civilization, they now had had the necessary machinery to make cloth more efficiently, thus freeing them from having to purchase it. So if in the 1790s, they were already creating and purchasing cloth or clothes 100 years before, then who has the civilization? Who has the civilization? Who is the genesis of this thing? So look, because we're about to get into Robert Williams. Okay, one crucial aspect of the plan that inspired much resistance amongst the Creeks was the curbing of men's hunting activities. Among the Creeks, women farmed and men hunted, and to be a man was to be a hunter. A man working in the field was a source of ridicule. And men were offended and embarrassed at being asked to undertake agricultural work. Hunting also was tied closely to Creek national territories. In their treaty negotiations, Creek representative invariably argued against land cessions on the grounds that they need all of their land for hunting, and hunting was considered a legitimate and mutually recognized claim to the national lands. In Creek eyes then, giving up the hunt was tantamount to giving up their land. So even though Creek men reorganized that the deerskin trade was floundering and that they needed a commercial alternative to it, they refused to abandon commercial hunting. This is where divide and conquer comes in. Because of the economic uncertainties of the deerskin trade, many Creek men and women had already turned to commercial livestock raising. In fact, Hawkins found the Creeks were well on the road to becoming ranchers at the time of his arrival in 1796. Almost every family owned cattle, hogs, and horses, and some individuals owned large herds. The Creeks raised cattle and hogs in part for their own consumption, but Creek ranchers drove most of their stock to markets in Mobile and Pensacola, where they were sold on the hoof. They used the proceeds to purchase guns, cloths, ammunition, metal goods, and other manufactured items. Some Creek families became full-time ranchers and began to acquire substantial wealth, and a few used their assets to purchase African slaves. These Creek adopted American notions of private property, and by the late 18th century, clear class division had emerged amongst Creek society. Watch that hijack right here. Look, it says they will use their assets to purchase African slaves. Cap. They were, if anything, a lot of them were purchasing each other, like family, and they probably were purchasing other black people to work for them. But watch the hijack. African is a hijack and slave is a hijack. Because all it is they're making enough money to where they have people working for them. Okay? That's what this is all about. But words are very powerful. I keep telling you that. In the plan of civilization on its surface, fit well within the changing economic status or situation of Creek life at the end of the 18th century. But Creek opinion about the program had been divided from the very beginning. Every Creek man and woman understood that America's underlying motivation of the civilization plan was land acquisition, and this fostered tension between those who viewed the plan as necessary to their cultural survival and those who viewed it as heralding its destruction. The tension contributed to a Creek Civil War, known as the Creek War of 1813 and 1814. Listen. They tell you World War I and World War II and the Civil War. They start with the wars there. They never start with all these Indian wars before that. But this is all due to us dealing with the enemy. The Red Sticks, Creek rebels, likely named after red war clubs they carried, directed their wrath against anything and anyone associated with the plan of civilization. They threw Creek-owned plows and looms into the river. They killed hogs, horses, and cattle, all symbols of America and the plan of civilization. Fearing an uprising, the United States government sent troops under who? The notorious Indian killer himself, Andrew Jackson, to engage the Red Sticks, who were finally defeated in August of 1814 at the Battle of Horseshoe Bend. Afterwards, the devastated Creeks tried to rebuild their national economy through farming and stock raising. By this time, however, American officials saw expulsion rather than plan of civilization as more expedient way to deal with the Indian problem, and they dropped their effort in favor of forcing the Indians to relocate to Indian Territory, now Oklahoma, accomplished through the Indian Removal Act of 1830. Now, why is this important? Why is this important? Because before Andrew Jackson was the president, he was a war general. Yes, Yvonne, they used divide and conquer. That's literally what they did. They used divide and conquer. So you go to these people, first of all, and we talked about this on an earlier Educational Friday. We spoke about this already. Your status depended on your job in the early times. Mind you, I thought all the black people were slaves anyway, but that's a whole other story. But your status depended on your jobs. So like they said, the men thought doing field work was woman work. Also, and by the way, this was very pivotal because if you strip the man of his identity, kill the Indian, keep the man, if his identity is him hunting and you take that away from him, you literally create mind-wise a whole new person. That's a whole new person. Okay? So with that being said, this divide and conquer thing happened because you got some people who are on the side of the clears and you got some people who are on the side of hell no. And honestly, the ones who were in the right were the ones on the side of hell no. Those were the ones in the right. Like, no, we're not doing that. And then all for it to go to war, and they, like they always do, go get federal reinforcements. They go get their military, like they always do. Study history. They always come back with a military, even all the way up to doggone Rosewood too, but all the way up to Tulsa. Okay? They always come back with their reinforcements, and then they told all them niggas, nah, none of y'all ain't getting nothing. Carry your ass up to Oklahoma. How that go? We gonna get more into this on another live, because we need to get into these Indian wars. We got to get into these Indian wars because a lot of those wars led to a lot of the wars that we have going on today, okay, or we've had in the recent past. Not only that, a lot of those Indian wars were divide and conquer wars, just like this one, okay. Cosmic Sun Soul, thank you for the super chat. Hey, beautiful Vu and beautiful and handsome acorns. I just dropped to show some love, and I'm at work, so I will catch the replay abundance, y'all. Oh, thank y'all. Thank you so much, Cosmic Sun Soul. Enjoy your time at work, honey. Enjoy, enjoy, enjoy. Now, let's get into Robert Williams, baby. Because remember, we weren't the slave like LeVar Burton had in the movie. That's not who we were. We were prisoners of war, okay? That's what we were, prisoners of war. And we didn't just become a prisoner of war and just sat there and took it. No, sir. We actually fought back all the way up until who, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls? Mike and the civil rights movement. Argue with your mom. I'm telling you what it was. Mike took a whole generation of black people, children, mind you. These weren't grown folks, children, high school, middle school, college children, and recreated a whole new person. Them the ones who was getting sprayed by water hose. It was very few adults, mostly children. Kill the inside and you keep the outside. You can recreate them to be whatever you want them to be. Okay, but Mike, he had a part to play in Robert Williams as well. Robert Williams was also a member of the NAACP, but he got suspended because he was on some F-stat type T's, as he should, and he was ready to go to war with whoever and whatever. He had this book called Negros with Guns, and he basically said it's going to be a lot of blood spraying and a lot of it's going to be a lot of revolutionary spill going on in these streets because I don't give a damn. And that has been us since the beginning of time, up until recently. The civil rights leader, him too, but the civil rights movement. So here's Robert Williams. We're gonna get into a bit of his background. The FBI, of course, was watching him. A fun fact too. You do know that the Black Panthers got a lot of their inspiration from Robert Williams with the, carrying the guns and all that stuff. So this dude was the truth. This dude didn't play. And he had everybody armed and everybody ready to go. Okay? Let's get into it. Y'all ready? We're going to get into a little bit of history. And then I got a video to show y'all. It's like a documentary on who he was and what happened. Okay? So let's go with no, not here. Well, let's go to the FBI files first, because Hoover with his little loose-wristed behind was over there hating. You know what I'm saying? Trying to, I think he probably jacked off to catching niggas. You know what I'm saying? Weird. Anyways, so according to the FBI, they have been watching him, and they had a whole bunch of manuscripts on Robert F. Williams. Okay, and we're gonna get into it. Biological history. It says Robert Franklin Williams was born in Monroe, North Carolina on February 26, 1925. During the Second World War, he worked as a mechanist and led a strike of workers at the age of 16. Williams moved to Michigan, and became an auto worker fighting in the race riots that engulfed in Detroit in 1943. In 1947, he married Mabel Ola Robinson. After serving an enlistment in the Marine Corps, William returned to Monroe in 1955 and founded the Union City branch of the NAACP. Okay, recruiting members along LA borders, LA borders, farmers, domestic workers, and unemployed. In 1957, he took a group of black children to the Monroe Public swimming pool in an attempt to open the pool to blacks. After this incident, local blacks began receiving death threats. I'm sorry, wrong line. And Williams responded by organizing armed squads of blacks for their defense. This led to a confrontation with the local Ku Klux Klan, which had its southeastern regional headquarters in Monroe. The Klan began to raid black neighborhoods in Monroe, and on October 5th, 1957, Klan members were driven out of the Newton section of Monroe by the squads of armed blacks that Williams had organized. We didn't just let them come burn down our houses, y'all. It says in 1958, Williams led an effort to free 2 black youths who had been in prison for kissing a 9-year-old white girl by recruiting a civil rights attorney from New York to plead their case. In addition, he elicited international publicity for the case, which eventually caused great embarrassment for the U.S. government. These efforts led to the release of youths and dismissals of all charges against them. However, Williams was subsequently suspended from the NAACP after remarking the blacks in Monroe would defend our women and children, our homes, and ourselves with arms. When a white man was acquitted for assaulting Mary Ruth Reed, a pregnant black woman, it says in 1961, Williams attempted to integrate the Monroe Public swimming pool by organizing a picket line which forced the pool to close. This led to an armed confrontation with local white citizens and the police. The Freedom Riders, that's another group. Remember, I want y'all to be that. Don't forget this. All these groups under the civil rights movement, they all psyops. They police. They police. That's who they are. Don't ever forget that. So when you hear the Freedom Riders coming in, they're not coming in to help him. They're coming in to spy, snitch, and to derail. The Freedom Riders also came to Monroe in 1961 and were supported by Williams, though he refused to participate in their pledge of non-violent protest. They come down there to calm him down. Okay? When the Freedom Riders arrived in Monroe, they were assaulted by a white mob, and black citizens started to form armed against in self-defense. In the resulting confusion, a white couple was given refuge in Williams' residence, but he was subsequently charged by the local police with kidnapping. The police also used the incident to raid the homes of blacks to disarm them. The confrontation forced Williams to flee from the United States to Cuba, where he lived with his wife Mabel for 5 years. From there, they organized Radio Free Dixie, which advocated armed self-defense and black liberations. Williams also, I can't find my cursor. Williams also continued to publish the Crusader newsletter, which he started in 1959. After a falling out with Fidel Castro in 1966, he moved his family to China and lived there during the height of the Cultural Revolution, inspired by Mao Zedong. Williams met Mao personally and toured with him through China, visiting communes and factories. Despite these connections, Williams maintained that he was a militant revolutionary nationalist and not a communist. As the international chairman of the Revolutionary Action Movement and president in exile of the Republic of New Africa, Williams traveled to countries in Asia and Africa. He also traveled to North Vietnam, where he met with Ho Chi Minh and broadcast, do they make these names up? And broadcast anti-war propaganda to black U.S. soldiers fighting in the South Vietnam. In 1969, Williams returned with his family to the United States and settled in Baldwin, Michigan. For the next several years, he fought extradition to North Carolina to face kidnapping charges. In 1976, the charges were dropped. Williams died in 1996 in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And here are the sources. Now, why is this important? First of all, a lot of black people protested the Vietnam War because they really knew that basically they were sending us on dummy missions. First of all, people of all colors protested the Vietnam War. Let's start there first. But a lot of blacks really did it. You heard not Malcolm X, well, him too. But you also heard Muhammad Ali and all them people saying, don't worry about them people war, because they knew it was dummy missions. Everybody at the time knew it was dummy missions. Okay? Now, with Robert Williams, you can see he was rebellious from the very beginning. And he had to flee to all these other places, right? So that he won't have to be faced with treason. The government wanted to charge him with treason by him going to Fidel Castro. But the thing is, it's just like, how is it treason? And he's going to mention this. How can it be treason when I'm not treated fairly by the people that's claiming that? Like, y'all got to claim me and treat me like a citizen for me to commit treason. It just literally doesn't make sense. But he would go on to inspire a whole lot of things. But let's never forget this. Martin Luther King was hired by the federal government to calm niggas down. That was his sole job and his sole purpose. Calm niggas down. They have been riots. We have been going to war still with these people. And Mike, aka Martin Luther King, single-handedly created a different mindset in the Negro. But he didn't go to the adults. He went to where? The children, because their minds are easily shaped. When he got John Lewis, he was on his way to college. That's a child. That's what he did. That was his job, okay? And those are one of the things I resent him for, because now we don't have no fight in us. None. Niggas really be walking around here turning the other cheek like that shit lit. Don't no other group of people on the face of this earth turn the other cheek except niggas. And we don't even see it. Because we've been taught through school, through church, and through all of this craziness to just, oh, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. No. Sometimes you have to get you know what I mean? I like when Malcolm said the revolution, y'all keep hollering about revolution, but y'all don't really want a revolution because a revolution causes bloodshed. And you nignogs ain't ready to shed no blood in no streets. That was the most pivotal thing he said. Stop talking about this revolution that. You niggas ain't trying to pop nothing. So what we talking about? Miss Kitty, thank you for the super chat. Happy Educational Friday, Vu, just showing some love. I'm tired today. I woke up at 4 a.m., so I'm going to have to be a part of the replay game today. Love you down to the ground. That's all right, baby. Get your rest, Kitty. Get your rest, baby. It's going to be here, hopefully. If not, catching on Rumble, girl. But it's going to be here. It's going to be here. Yeah, George, put it in Jesus' hand and all that stuff. You know what? And Cece, it's so funny you say that. She said, I think we are now. You know, we are, but it's so unorganized and so all over the place. You know, with these YNs and all that stuff. And listen, the earth is repairing itself. It's going to come out and it's going to be weird. It's going to be crazy. Nobody's going to know what's going on until we're able to focus our attention where we need to be. Okay. Now I want to get into, let me see if this is the only one I want to share with y'all. Hold on one second. He was born in 25 and died in 96. I wish I had known him. Worked as an auto worker in Detroit, fought in the 1943 riot. I think that's most of the stuff we already covered, okay? They suspended him for 6 months. The NAACP chapter suspended him for 6 months and became famous for his militancy and advocating self-defense against racist attacks. Let me tell you something. Let me tell y'all something. The NAACP was another organization that was used, that was a psyop. They really was around there acting like they was for the black person, black this, black that, when the fact of the matter is they were never for black. First of all, it was always colored people, and that told you everything you needed to know right there. And they were all ran by the orange juice people. Okay? Remind me Tuesday, George, of your birthday. Happy early birthday. But never forget that all of these organizations, while we revere them, we don't even know that we're like praising the people who like sideswiped us. For real. That's literally what we're doing. We are praising the people who sideswiped us. Now, I want to get into this video. Fair use fair use copyright section 107 of the copyright law, section 29, Canadian Copyright Act. The views expressed in this film are those of the creators of the film alone. The person appearing in this film may not or do not necessarily support the viewpoints of the creators of the film, okay? Fair use, fair use. Y'all get the likes up on the video. I want to get into this whole situation with Robert Williams because we need to learn more about these people, okay? Because they don't teach us about these people. Let's get the likes up. Let's get into it.
Black militant Robert Williams voluntarily returned from self-exile today and immediately was arrested as a fugitive.
The reality is that America is not God, America is not the end of the earth, and it doesn't matter what the Americans think. In the final analysis, the truth will come out. Well, I advocated violent self-defense because I don't think you can really have a defense against violent racists and against terrorists unless you're prepared to meet violence with violence.
Monroe, a small town, typical of southern towns.
Me, my wife, gone all over town. Everywhere we go, the people would turn us down, Lord, and the bridge goes down.
My father was a railway worker, but they had a system on the railroad. But the boilermaker had to be a white man, and so they could, all the white men could have a heifer. And my father used to do all of this work. The white man was getting the money, and the white man stayed drunk about all the time. In later years, the whites in the community used to always tell me that I should be like my father, that he was a good man, and that he was a hard worker, and he never gave any trouble.
Oh, man, brother, leave me alone. Go find you someone else.
Community, because I lived in a predominantly white community out in the country, and the men and women talked very openly about how they felt, what they thought this strange person was doing to upset the normalcy of our community.
Please, Mr. Boss Man, tell me what I've done.
My bad, y'all. I'm just trying to minimize the music copyright. Okay, hold on.
To make a black woman dance on the street, calling it gunpoint. That way they make somewhat of a jig. It's like a puppet, you know, when you're dangling a puppet on the string. You're completely reduced then to nothing. And that's one thing that helped set that first thing off in Monroe in '57. That's what set off the God. Then we started to really getting organized and setting up and digging foxholes, and we started getting ammunition.
Rob had these guns, high-powered rifles. You know, all we had was 22s and 410 shotguns hunting, you know, and got a chance to, you know, to use the high-powered weapons and become proficient with them. And he taught us a little, what do you call it, karate or self-defense things, you know. We drilled with him, trained with him.
Much of our guard was young. We had guys that were 16 years old, 15 and 16. We had some too in the 40s and 50s. But a good many of them were the very young high school students and dropouts.
And this was a problem. And I'm only stopping for context because I don't want it to not show that I'm giving commentary. But this was a problem. He said most of the people that he was training were young, 16, 17 years old. Remind you, during this time of the NAACP, we got Mike and them running around telling children to turn the other cheek. He's growing an actual soldier or military of young men. This is a problem. So this is, if you ask me, why one of the main reasons why the government sent the NAACP and the Freedom Riders and all these other folks in there to stop him. Because listen, if he were to be successful and this militancy spreads, the government has a huge problem on their hands. Okay? So he's a problem right here because he's taking the same kids that they trying to indoctrinate into turning around to be subtle and scary. He's turning them into soldiers, probably helping them practice guerrilla warfare. You never know.
We were never looking for trouble. You know, as long as you're peaceful, we're peaceful. But if you become violent, we have to become violent, you know. We weren't attacking anybody or fighting against anybody, just protecting ourselves, you know.
Had 200 armed, plus we had others who would have been on call, about 500 or 600 guns, because some people had guns who weren't directly participating, but they were on call if we needed them.
I guess he weighed, like weighed about maybe 220 for the time. That was pretty big, and he was strong. Now Rob could have handled himself. Now I'm gonna tell you, you know, he could have handled himself.
Oh, Jim Crow, where you been, baby? Down Mississippi and back again. Oh, Jim Crow.
I'm just trying to minimize the music, y'all, but oh boy wasn't playing.
He carries gun right on the side, go right downtown, go everywhere wrong way. He carries 45 right on. Now, where he uses it now, I don't know. But I guess people felt the same way like I felt. They didn't know. So they didn't bother Rob.
Threatened with death, he walked down the street wearing a pistol on his belt, which would be a normal white Southern thing to do. White Southerners, their rights challenged, will react with vehemence and force. But for a black man to act as an equal in that way was just unthinkable.
He found humor in dealing with the Klan on the telephone. People would call with threatening calls. I remember one time he heard one of the Klansmen call his own wife's name Stella or something like that. Stella, be quiet. I'm trying to talk to this nigga or something like that, you know. And so the next time he called, Rob said, "How's sweet Stella doing?" And the man said, "What do you know about Stella? I'd soon kill Stella as to kill you."
That's how stupid. Let me tell you how the government is smart. They divide and conquer. They got the dumbest of the dumbest white men to be KKK members. Like, you had to have super low IQ to be a KKK member, especially one of the foot soldiers. This white boy done called the man threatening him and hollered out his wife's name and then got mad when the man said, "How sweet Stella? How you know about my wife, nigger?" I'm telling you, I sometimes I ain't done it in a while, but I used to go back and watch old KKK rallies to laugh because they really is stupid. Like, it's really the dumbest white people they got. It is literally the dumbest. Hey, you know what movie depicted it perfectly? Django. When he said, "God damn, who cut the holes in the mask?" Well, I tell you what, my wife could have cut. That's how stupid they was. That's literally how stupid they were. Like, that wasn't an exaggeration.
The motorcade would come through a black community. Everybody would pull their blinds and lock up in the houses, and they were afraid. But instead, we came out, and our people would come out in line, stand along the street.
Life was another movie. Remember when they said when they found when they found Rick, Claw, and Ray, and they had said that they had killed the man, and he was like, "You boys don't drink all that up in one time." That's how stupid they was. Tobacco spitting, nasty, skin peeling. Ugh. Yeah.
With her guns, you see.
You know, I think about this courageous guy who dared to deviate from the accepted norm, who dared to say, you know, we're not taking this. You're not just going to beat us up. You're not going to fire in our homes without us defending ourselves. And that really is the American norm.
I wouldn't go nowhere without one. So yeah, we had to have guns because they had them. And that's the only way we repelled them is because we outgunned them.
We had lots and lots of guns around the house all the time. Rifles, especially after we organized our rifle club, people would send us $26 donation to buy a rifle for the protection of our community.
Wow. To us, there was no consultation, no such thing as moral persuasion. The only thing left for us was the bullet. Go ahead on, Rob. I didn't even try to monetize this. I don't really care. I just want to talk about it. So listen, he's going after the children. This is very strategic. This is very strategic because the same government is doing it to the children, but on the opposite end.
In October of 1958, there were two black boys and some white girls and boys playing in a vacant lot in Monroe. And on toward evening, a kissing game ensued. Someone kissed someone.
Well, nobody has seen
No
it.
cap. I really wish we were racist. I wish we were stone cold racist. Because this is going to cause for them little boys to almost lose their lives and almost go to jail for the rest of their life. I really wish black people were racist. And I wish we weren't shamed for being racist. Like, I do. A lot of the stuff was made up too. Don't get me wrong, back in those days. But a lot of the times, I think one of the Achilles heel that they had over our head was the fact that they knew that we wanted to integrate and be around them. That was one of the Achilles heels that we had. And that's not even that's not even including the people who want to integrate like relationship wise. You know what I mean? Like that was one of the kryptonites we had. I'm telling you.
But the girl just had made a casual remark to her mother that she had kissed Hanover. And then the mother got all excited and started scrubbing her face and called her father, and he threatened to kill him, go kill him, and got his shotgun.
The police went looking for them too. They found the two little boys, arrested them, beat them, locked them in the basement of the jail for 6 days without being able to see their parents or talk to an attorney. Terrified them. It so happened that Halloween, it was October 28th, and then on Halloween, the police officers put on sheets and came down into the basement of the jail where the children were being held, thinking it would be real funny to terrify them because the children knew that the Klan was outside calling for their blood.
And they had to teach these boys early that they just couldn't expect to cross the color line in sex.
There were two separate hearings, one for the white families and one for the black boys. And then the local judge sentenced the boys to reform school for a period not to exceed their 21st birthday. Now, they were 8 and 10 years old. He turned into kind of a one-man press office for the kissing case, and he managed to get this out onto the front pages of newspapers all over the world.
Them boys was 8 and 10 years old, and they wanted to. The judge said that he sentenced them to basically reform school or probably out there sharecropping or some shit, all the way till they was 21 years old, and they 8 and 10. That's their entire childhood. That's their entire childhood. You saw that, Dina Nicole, how they had the babies down there and the KKK came down there to scare them on Halloween? Wow.
The bad publicity really forced Hodges to intervene and release the boys after only 4 months. Hodges made a big show of how they had now been rehabilitated. One of the important things about the kissing case is that it brings Rob to a kind of national and even international recognition.
Then there was the case of Mrs. Reed, Mary Ruth Reed. She was about, I think, 7 or 8 months pregnant. And this man, white man, came to her house, and first he tried to get her to go to bed with him, and she resisted, and he beat her, started attacking her.
The struggle went into the field between two houses, and her white neighbor saw Medlin beating her and pulling at her clothing and ran out. And she and her children were fighting with him, and the white woman came out and she saw what had happened, and he eventually left without having raped her, but he had tried.
So
watch how evil these people is. So far, the lady Reed, the clear man came in the house, tried to rape her. She couldn't, she fought him off, her and her kids. A white neighbor saw him. Watch how evil these people is. Now, pay attention to that.
what had happened was that during this time, some men in the community, this woman also had some brothers, had 3 or 4 brothers, and the men in our guard said that we should kill this man.
Rob said, no. Let's let the law handle it. So, and Rob really believed in the law during those days.
They brought this man, Louis Medlin, the white man, brought his wife and set him at his side all during the time the trial was on it. His lawyer got up and said, Judge, Your Honor, this man is not guilty, that he was just drinking, having a little fun. Said, you see this woman sitting here at his side? This is the pure flower of life, God's greatest gift to man, this white woman. And do you think that he would leave this pure flower of life for that? And so, that was the end of the trial.
You heard that? You saw how his lawyer won the case? First of all, he was just drinking. He was just playing. But not only that, he's sitting next to the greatest thing on God's green earth, which is a pure white woman. You think he gonna leave his woman to sleep with the likes of a Negro gal? Come on, judge. And the judge said not guilty. Now, the horrible part about this. To be a white woman in those days, knowing that your husband lusts after that black woman, that's why, that in my opinion, I believe that's why white women hate black women to this day, because the lust ain't never went nowhere. Now, I ain't saying they trying to marry a whole bunch of black women. I ain't saying they trying to be with a whole bunch of black women. But white men have always had this weird lust for black women. And this is probably why a lot of white women have a lot of disdain for black women, because they know that even though they can be this, that, and the third, they typically not enough. I would hate to be them. And they got to stay married to these fools, knowing that he around here trying to rape white women. Child. And back then you could beat your wife and don't worry about it. Child. He trying to rape black women. Girl, that's crazy work.
They found him not.
This is why I also say the dumbest thing for us to do was mess with them at that feminist movement, because it was never for us. It was never for anything for the betterment of us, ever.
Guilty and dismissed the case. At that point, every black woman in the courtroom was in tears and angry and ready to do something. And they took the accuser out the back door. took them out the back door. And when we all met down where Rob was, and he saw what our condition was and how, and one woman said, these people have declared open season on black women. What are you going to say now? What are we going to do now? And that's when he made that statement.
I made a statement that if the 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution cannot be enforced in this social jungle called Dixie, it is time that Negroes must defend themselves even if it is necessary to resort to violence. That there is no law here and there is no need to take the white attackers to the courts because they will be freed, and that the federal government is not coming to the aid of people who are oppressed, and it is time for Negro men to stand up and be men, and that if it's necessary for us to die, we must be willing to die. If it's necessary for us to kill, we must be willing to kill. Lord,
do you see how powerful what he just said was? We gonna defend our women. And if it's necessary for us to die, we gonna die. If it's necessary for us to kill, we gonna kill. See, we tried to go about it your way. And we realized that y'all just gonna sweep this crap under the rug. Well, I'm calling for black men to come together and defend our women, and we gonna die about it. Now, let me say this, because I know a lot of people are gonna see this and say, oh, this is back when men were men. Yes, and this is also back when women were women. It wasn't no Sukianas plastered all over the doggone tube and was the highest inspiration to black women. It goes two ways. It goes both ways. The reason whole culture is so popular and so lit for the masses is because it literally dehumanizes black women. That's why black men wouldn't do shit to protect black women. Oh, and by the way, they already feminized too. Okay? Listen, there's a reason why they feminize the black man and dehumanize the black woman so that this does not happen. See, if you watch the TV and the PBS and all these other documentaries, we just over there getting our ass whooped, holding our head low, like, oh, no, baby, we fought back. And he ain't the first nor the last. This is why we got to get up out of this matrix as far as this internet stuff and get back to who and what we are. The divide and conquer, when y'all listen, divide and conquer works every time. This is why I get upset when I see women who just always black men this, black men that. We all got our stuff to work on. Every black men and black women, ain't none of our hands clean in this. But to sit up there and hate each other, we going further and further away from unity to that where we can beat this thing possibly. And that's why I despise that stuff. I'm not saying a black woman shouldn't be bad with a black man because of her experiences and vice versa. I get it, bro. I get it. But we cannot go on continuing to preach this rhetoric like every single black woman is a whore or a slut or a sexy red, and every single black man is a bitch ass nigga and we shouldn't procreate. That's the most asinine thing, because who else is going to help up for the black woman? And who else is going to back the black man? Nobody. It's divide and conquer, divide and conquer. That's all I'm trying to get y'all to see. That's all. Negro leader demands use of force. A racial zealot goes too far. Look, they're like, oh, hell no. NAACP suspends Monroe, North Carolina head. Listen. So he gets suspended. Now, this is my question. If the National Advancement of Association for Colored People was really for what they say it was, shouldn't they be coming in to defend him? Shouldn't the NAA, instead of suspending Robert Williams, shouldn't they have been setting up legal consultation for him just in case it has to go there? They already straight and set up. Because remember, that's what they said they were for. That's what they said. They said the NAACP is the lawyers of the group. It's the Thurgood Marshalls of the group. We supposed to come in for any type of injustice or things going wrong with the blacks. We coming in with legal reinforcements. We coming in with whatever they need. Why would the NAACP suspend him? Oh, I know, because they never was there to do that. They never was there to do that. Okay? They were never, that was never their purpose at all from the very beginning. Remember, the orange juice people running all this. They running all of it. Williams plans to defy NAACP.
It's fair to say that both the NAACP, SCLC, the orthodox civil rights movement of the time, depended so heavily on white, northern, liberal support that they're fearful that embracing Williams or supporting Williams means immediately losing that support.
The NAACP and the SCLC, NAACP, that's Thurgood and them, SCLC, that's Mike and them, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. Their main support was white northern liberals. What did Malcolm X tell you about the liberal? He told you the liberal were devils and demons in disguise. Okay? He said they are the most cunning, disgusting people, and I'm just paraphrasing. Now, if their main backing was white people from the North who were liberals, then that would make sense why the NAACP suspends Robert, because they like, hey, bro, we the one paying y'all niggas. If y'all gonna back him, then we not gonna pay y'all. And money talks and bullshit walks. Okay? BC, I'm not making this a I'm literally not making this a gender war thing. Black men and black women fucked up. You know what I'm saying? All of us are messed up. None of us have room to point the finger at nobody. We all messed up. I refuse to make this a gender war situation. We need to fix it. That's it. I'm not going there. Okay? All right. So instead of defending him, they're not, because they're major supporters and backers. They're saying the white liberals, it's the orange juice people. Okay? It's the orange juice people. All right? Let's get into it.
I wasn't going to crawl to try to appease and accommodate white people who were giving money, contributing money, that it was a matter of human dignity. So they said I was suspended for 6 months. The chapter said, well, if he's suspended for 6 months, then we will appoint his wife as the president of the branch, and that he will run the branch through his wife.
They had to be convinced we were going to fight for justice.
So we went uptown with Rob, and went to Oasis, and went in there and sat down. And people started moving things off the counter, looking us like we were something out of space. They had a little hole there, I call a hole in the wall, where black people went to get served and walk out on the street, you know.
Coming down the street in town, we'd be coming down in line, in the file, and they would start locking the doors of these different lunch counters, closing down altogether. They just declared business closed until we left. Strong group people started forming on the streets, and they said I should be killed.
(1961) was the fourth summer in a row that Robert Williams and the NAACP in Monroe had tried to integrate the swimming pools. So they kept showing up the pool with their shorts and their towels, and they did it over and over again. And one time they went out there and they're standing around with their signs, protesting the fact that this pool is supported by tax funds and they're not permitted to use it. And people shot at them.
The shots that I remember came from across the other side of the creek, which was down the hill from the swimming pool. And there was this creek, and they were on the other side of the creek firing as you hear the bullet whizzing over our heads, you know.
Chief of police was standing there. I asked him, did he hear these bullets? He said, no, he didn't hear anything. I told him, well, that was good. But I was glad to know that he didn't hear very well, because when we started shooting, he wouldn't hear it either.
He was
We
a
were coming
comedian.
up 601, and we reached the top of the hill. I think it was a Hilltop Cafe or something. This car comes out into the road and hits us, you know. And I think they were waiting for us because there was a lot of people there.
The police were there, supposedly directing traffic and ignoring the fact that the mob was closing in on Rob's car with the teenagers. And Rob saw that the police was not going to intervene to help them. And so he stepped out of the car and asked one of the teenagers in the back to pass him his rifle.
When they saw that we were armed, the crowd kind of, you know, held up. And then that's when the police got involved, because they were there all the time and saw what was going on, but they never moved until they saw we had weapons. And they wanted to come and take our weapons away. And Rob said, no, I ain't gonna give up my gun unless they give up theirs.
And I put the rifle in the face, so we're not going to surrender to any mob. Then there was an old man out there that started crying. The man was just crying like a child, like a baby. He said, what is this country coming to? Said, the goddamn niggas got guns and the police can't even arrest them.
And so that's where he got the title, Negroes with Guns.
That's dope.
Phone calls that would come throughout the night, oftentimes, where people would call and they would make threats, but they were pretty consistent as we increased our civil rights activities. And then things got to the point where threats were being made that people were threatening to bomb the house. There were times when people would come by the house and shoot guns.
You have to understand that in the years between, say, 1957 and 1961 in Monroe, there were Klan rallies with as many as 15,000 people in attendance. And it was dangerous. They were constantly under attack. And the Klan was large and violent, and it killed other people.
You know what I noticed too? The Klan used a lot of symbolism to scare. They use more scare tactics than not, getting together with the white hoods and burning the cross. And mind you, these people taught from the same Bible as you were. But I found it odd that they always did a whole lot of fluffing before they, you know what I mean? They didn't just come in and do what they got to do. They got to have the meetings, burn the crosses. That's got to go on TV so the people could see. You know, it's a lot of mental manipulation going on. You know what I'm saying? It's just a lot of mental manipulation going on.
The people.
By 1961, the aggressive approach to local rights problems had brought violence to Monroe. And Williams and his followers had strayed farther away from the main line of Negro thinking. These incidents awakened the concern of moderate whites and Negroes alike. The Ku Klux Klan and other segregationist groups began taking a greater interest in the Monroe situation, too. In line with his policy of armed self-defense, Williams organized Negro gun clubs. The town of Monroe is becoming a potential powder keg, an incident waiting to happen.
If they prove their ways were superior, then I will become a pacifist. So we started off and embarked on the test. Robert Williams.
A railroad slices through Monroe. It's not one town, but two towns. On the right, Monroe is white, and on the left is Newtown. August 61, at the call of young Rob Williams to see what could be done.
We could use the help. So that's when James Foreman and Paul Brooks came into the community to help us to protest. And I think it was Foreman who said that the King forces wanted to prove nonviolence as was successful over violence.
You heard him? So you got these two new brothers coming in to help. And but their thing was King's talking about Mike. King's thing was to prove that non-violence worked and not violence. I see why Malcolm X was so disgusted with niggas and Mike. Because I'm here in 2025 and I'm disgusted. I understand every single frustration Malcolm went through when he would talk to niggas about how stupid and foolish y'all look, talking about getting anything done through nonviolence. He literally did a whole speech on how no crew, no nation has ever been successful using nonviolence, but niggas still went with the move, bruh. They still went with the move. Like, I understand, Malcolm. I'm sorry. I understand. Because none of this makes sense.
Only thing I knew, they said the Freedom Riders coming.
There they go.
They said Rob was getting the Freedom Riders to come. And then, the next thing I know, this guy was coming in from New York and places, Washington, D.C. and places. And a lot of those guys, they were going to Harvard and Yale doing research on hunger strike.
This is no shade. Shout out to my New York and my D.C. and all them people. But this is no shade. I just got to say this part because I thought about this when I did a documentary on the voter situation in Mississippi. I think that if people were black people only, not the clears. I don't think no clears, and we're about to get into this clear right here, but I don't think no clear should have been involved in any of our movements, number one. But number two, if black people were going to come from places like New York, DC, Jersey, wherever the hell they coming from, I think that they should have just been reinforcements. That's it, and that's all. They should not have been leading anything, only because the situation in the South was very, very specific. It was very, very intense. It was very, very meticulous. You see what I'm saying? And this is no shade. Shout out to my brothers and sisters up north. But you don't understand the fight because you haven't lived the fight. And the problem with all of these NAACP civil rights organizations is most of them people come from the North who don't understand the true struggles of the South. This is no shade. I appreciate every single person who volunteered out of the kindness of their heart. I appreciate every black person who came down here really thinking they was doing something good. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is the problem with, even when we look at that Mississippi documentary I did, the problem that they had down there is they was pulling in Medgar Evers' brothers, Charlie Eggers and all that stuff. And all these folks was coming, bringing people from up north who knew nothing about what the hell was going on in the South. They knew just as much as the white person standing next to him. And they coming down to the South and leading these situations. And it really is causing a wrench. It's throwing a wrench in whatever it is that we were down here trying to do. Because I can't come to New York and tell you how to fight the Italians when I ain't never lived around no Italians. You see what I'm saying? I can't come to Jersey and teach you how to fight the Jerusalem people because I ain't never lived amongst them people. I don't even know what y'all going through. I think that was a big mistake that we even allowed these NAACP and all these other people, but it was a celebrityism to it. Trust and believe. You know what I'm saying? But I think that the problem is they didn't understand the plight. Jamal said the North was more revolutionary than the South. Yes and no. See, and the reason I'm going to say yes and no is because, yes, the North wasn't, I guess you would call a bit more progressive than the South. But just like we're going over this with Robert Williams, our stories aren't told. They don't tell our stories about who really was out here boots to the ground, really fighting these folks. We was not just sitting there letting them people play with us like that. To be completely honest, I'm going to just be honest. And I love y'all down to the ground. But to be completely honest, the North should have fought their fights and the South should have kept fighting theirs. We was getting people from, if you was in Georgia, we did go get people from Alabama, Florida. You see what I'm saying? North, South Carolina. We used to go get them because we have a commonality and a common enemy. Remember, the Yankee was different from the Confederate white. And I seen it in 2025. In 2025 in Georgia, when white folks from New York and all the way from up north come down here, you know what the white folks in the South called them? Yankees. In 2025, it was a different enemy. That's all I'm saying. It was just different. And this is no shade. Like I said, I appreciate all my people. I really do. I appreciate it. It just was different. It just was different. So the enemy was different. So you know, and then they suppressed a lot of our stories, which is why I'm bringing up Robert Williams now, because this type of stuff needs to be talked about. Because if we didn't have the internet, we would never know about these people. We would never know about these people. Tiffany said they say it here in Texas. I'm telling you, girl, listen. I'm telling you, girl, listen. In 2025, they call white folks from up north Yankees. To this day, it's a different type of white boy. It's different. It's different.
Well, there was also an English girl who had come, English a student who had written me a letter and said she was visiting the United States and she had never been to the South, and she heard that we had demonstrations going and she would like to visit us there, and if I would allow her to come, she would come there and help us to work with you and whatever she could do.
Let this be a lesson to any future thing we have. They can't help us. I heard one of the Tariq Nasheed's broadcasts talking about how can white people with good intentions help? You can't. You can't. Unless you're going to be a spy and come back and give us tea, you can't. This is no shade. You can't. It never works out. It will never work out, and it has never worked out. Watch. It just don't work out.
He was the first person I had ever met who could talk about great values and splendid ideas and about justice and liberty and sound genuine and sound convincing and not just be somebody, you know, putting on an act.
Oh, freedom.
Diva Kika said, you was crazy. Set up Queen Civil Rights Edition. Girl, y'all is crazy. Set up Queen Civil Rights Edition. You can't have them with you. You can't. You can't.
They didn't really know what they were facing in Monroe. They'd never been through a southern town before.
See?
And some of their manners were atrocious.
Now, even a clear man can admit that they was out of their league because they never been through a southern town before and didn't know. You see what I'm saying?
Now, I remember they would tell us, like, say, if you can't take it, don't go up there.
Let me add my great-grandmother, unalived, a KKK member in Greene County, Alabama, and my great-granddad on my dad's side, unalived, one in Mississippi. That's how both sides of my family ended up in Birmingham, Alabama. Man, shout out to the lineage, to the ancestors, bro. Your family are true heroes. Do you hear me? Shout out to your family. Man, I feel like I know them and I ain't never met them. Shout out to your family, bro. This is what I'm talking about. That's something to be proud about. Genealogy is very, very important, SJ Ivy. Genealogy is imperative. Do you hear me? Yeah, because guess what? The fight that was in both of your grandparents is in you and in your kids and so on and so forth. You ain't go nowhere. You just got to tap in. You just got to tap in. That's all. You just got to tap in. Shout out to the ancestors, bro. For real, for real. Like, that shit just gave me chills when I saw that.
Because he said, this is a non-violence. Like, people come there spitting on you, kicking you, and pushing you, and all this kind of stuff, you know. You know, because he said, like, if you go up there, this is probably what's going to happen. If you can't take it, don't go. One of the freedom riders who walked in front of me And this little white girl walks up to him and said, "Are you a nigger lover?" He said, "Yes, I am." And she spit in his face.
Of course, the real hot button is white women and black men.
The pavements opposite, on the other side of the road, were clearly packed with people. There were certainly people shouting every kind of abuse. They were standing there watching and clearly weren't going away. They didn't just happen to be passing. We'll get you nigger, and nigger lovers was the favorite thing.
They picketed for a week. Well, the time was coming up for the weekend, and I wasn't participating in the demonstrations at all because I wasn't going to take any pledge for nonviolence. And so I asked them if they were going to rest on Saturday and Sunday, and they said no.
Some of the northern protesters came to our church, which was Central Methodist, which is right uptown, and demanded to be seated. Of course, we seated them. And I think that they didn't like being seated as near the front as they were, but nobody tried to hinder them.
We weren't warmly welcomed, but we weren't hostilely received. I think they behaved quite correctly. We were seated, we were given these little forms. If you're interested in the church in future, please fill in.
I don't trust this lady.
We came back, and I think we had something to eat, and then we went into town to picket.
Thousands of Klansmen, Minutemen, and other fascist and racist poured into the city. And they had said that they were going to crush this demonstration and that they were going to destroy our branch of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. And most of all, they were going to kill me.
Remember, the Ku Klux Klan was hired by the government, just like the civil rights leaders. They were all employees of the federal government, allegedly.
Then I told the guard that it looked like we were going to have a battle that night.
You have to understand, these people are separate from Robert Williams in some ways. He's supporting them, he's helping them with some housing, he's willing to help them, but they're really not his people. The situation downtown is so dangerous that that people who were working with Robert Williams went downtown to rescue them.
Crowds were starting attacking us who were around the courthouse, and the attacks were very, very vicious. We were trying to protect everybody we possibly could, you know, and especially there was one young white lady from England, Constant Lever.
James Foreman, you know, tried to get me into one of the cars that had come to take us off. It wasn't specifically me. There was a move to take everybody off. We were told, you know, as soon as the cars come, you all go. And a group of people had already gone. So he tried to, well, he did put me into the car.
And that is one of the things that really set the mob off. And the police, the other thing that set the mob off is that the police appeared to be on the side of the mob. There was a shotgun in the car. That's not illegal. It's in plain view. And the police took the shotgun and gave it to a member of the mob.
He pointed it at James Foreman. He said, "Don't you dare touch that car, nigger." James Foreman then did what I thought at the time was one of the most courageous acts I've seen. The moment the man said to him, "Don't you dare touch that car, move back," he immediately put his hand on the car. And the man did not respond because, I mean, when people respond with that much courage, it does put people off.
And so we made a decision to put Constant in the car, and I think I got in the car. And that's when, as I got in the car, the barrel came down on my head.
Look.
He had blood all pouring down.
Think about the optics of this. I'm just being objective. Think about the optics of this. She from London or some shit. Think about the optics of this. I'm talking about from the black side to the white side. You niggas really out there about to risk your life for a glass of whole milk in the sun? It's so you shoving a white woman in the car. I'm being honest. I gotta say this part right here. Because I told y'all a lot of this civil rights movement was a lot of black men wanting to sleep with white women too. You really is, granted, according to the white woman, oh, it wasn't really like that. They was just putting us all in the car. But yeah, this hit different though. This white boy got a shotgun to your face telling you, hey, don't you touch that car, nigga. And you, instead, not if it would hit different if you was doing this for a black woman. You feel what I'm saying? She ain't even American, let alone black. And you really standing toe to toe with this white boy behind his woman, that's a problem. That's a problem, y'all. She shouldn't have been there in the first place. But this right here in particular is a huge problem. Like, I'm just thinking of the optics of it. I'm not even a KKK white man. But as a nigga, I'm looking like, nigga, what? You really going, you about to lose your life behind the white girl? Remember, this isn't Robert Williams. These are the reinforcements that the NAACP and civil rights people are sending in. This ain't him. This is the people that the civil rights people are sending in. But just the optics of it all, if I was a white man, I would understand. If I was a white man, this is crazy. You about to lose your whole head over putting a white woman in a car, my nigga? This is crazy.
On his shirt. And the police drove us and the black people they've been trying to arrest from inside the car and drove. We all packed in and drove to the police station.
Mm-hmm.
I started going to the telephone. I told them no, I was too busy. I wasn't going to accept any more calls. And then they hollered out again and said, well, this is Martin Luther King calling from Atlanta. He wants to talk to you. I told him, I didn't care who it was. That it was too late now. He didn't come before, and now we're already in battle.
On Sunday.
You hear that? Mike called him. Hey, the president must have got on the phone with Mike and said, Mike, your niggers are out of control again. What's going on? And Mike's, oh, yes, sir. Let me give him a call. But by the time you call Rob, he was already on his shiznai. He didn't give a damn about none of that. Rob said it's up and it's stuck. I don't give a damn about that. He said you should have called earlier. But you didn't call, so it is what it is. I don't blame Rob. But Mike was calling now.
Sunday, that tension exploded in front of the Monroe courthouse as white bystanders clashed with Negro demonstrators. Alarm spread quickly, and soon many Negroes were enraged by reports of beatings and the jailings of some demonstrators.
That was a fearful day because people were getting beat up and imprisoned, and we didn't know where people were, and there was shots fired and everything, you know. But the scary part was when the Seagulls came onto the neighborhood, and the crowd wanted to, you know, attack them and kill them, and Rob said, "No, protect them, you know, don't
definitely got the 3 taps."
And that was the time I felt, you know, I was gonna have to fire on some of my own people because they were really angry.
According to Mrs. Stegall, she and her husband drove to Monroe Sunday afternoon to visit her mother. They heard of the disturbances in town but weren't involved until they took a shortcut to their destination. Then on Winchester Street, passing through a Negro neighborhood, a crowd suddenly blocked their path. Mrs. Stegall tells what happened then in these words.
Everybody had a gun of some kind. There was some of the officers' guns I've ever seen. And I remember one fellow that come pushing through like that he had a sawed-off gun, a double barrel thing. He said, let me kill him, just like that.
Now, when did Williams come on the scene?
Well, after they had took us out of our car at gunpoint, and marched us up the street to his house, and that was the first time I saw him in his yard.
They were very, very angry, and I could see that they were very angry. So when I came down into the yard, Mrs. Stegall said to me, "Oh, we've been kidnapped." And so I said, "Well, lady, you're not kidnapped here. If you want to go, you're free to go whenever you are ready." I said, "But you got to go through this crowd." And she said, "Well, if you take us out of here, we'll be all right." I said, "No, I'm not going to take you out because I didn't bring you here, and I'm not going to take you away. That you're free to leave whenever you're ready to go."
It hadn't even dawned on me that I was kidnapped. I didn't know I was God.
And the people were screaming, still screaming. Some were practically hysterical. And one man started crying, just crying like a baby. And he said, "Give me a gun, give me a gun, let me kill them." And so I could tell that the crowd was becoming too tense. And I got into the crowd around the Stegalls, and I started pushing the crowd away from them.
According to Mrs.
This is why you cannot allow them in on your struggle. You can't. You just can't. This white woman come in there after being scared of the mob on both sides, decide to go under the recovery of Robert Williams. And then she tell Robert Williams, "Oh Lord, am I kidnapped?" He said, "Hell no, bitch, you can leave today. You can go." And then she said, "Well, can you walk me out?" "Hell no, I didn't walk you in. Why would I walk you out?" Then the lady turned around and said, "I didn't even know I was kidnapped." There's only one way this thing is going to work. It has to be completely opposite of any of those people. Every time I see a clear face, immediately I know it's going to shits. Scientifically, genetically, they're incapable of caring about you the way that you care about other people. Y'all don't understand that. Y'all don't. It's fuck the feelings. Genetically, scientifically, they are incapable of caring about you the way that you care about them. We just saw this woman on the news this morning behind that young boy Carmelo Anthony up in Texas. She couldn't even shed a tear for her own child. She couldn't even, you couldn't even see a teardrop or the sun for their own child. You think they give a fuck about you? You can't. It's impossible. It will never, ever, ever, under any circumstance, in any situation work. It will never work. It's just frustrating. So now she done went and told the white folks that he kidnapped her. Here you go.
Stegall, she and her husband were to remain in the nearby house, which had been used to quarter Freedom Riders, until 9 o'clock, when they were released and drove through police lines to safety. After the Stegalls were taken from his house, William says he received a threatening phone call which prompted him to leave. He described it this way.
They said to me that, "Robert, you caused a lot of trouble in this town, and now state troopers are on the way, and in 30 minutes you'll be hanging in the courthouse square." So I told my wife that we were going to have to leave.
We just walked out the back door, and that was one of the most frightful things that I've ever done in my life. I had on the worst dress you could ever imagine because I had just washed my clothes the day before, or no, that day, and we had them hanging on the line. I left my clothes hanging on the line. Rob had a machine gun, and I had his Luger, and the two boys were right there with us. And we stood there until the police car went down Fairley Avenue, and then we crossed Fairley Avenue and continued down the back alley.
We was standing upstairs. I heard a white man say, "I don't want no niggas up there." Lord, he's a bushwalk man.
As soon as we got in New York, I flashed my picture on television, said that I was extremely dangerous. So this complicated the matter because we didn't expect that. You see, because when we left, there was no kind of I want anything.
Home of the brave, land of the free. I don't want to be mistreated by no bourgeoisie, Lord, in a bourgeois town. It's a bourgeois town. I got to
I was given political asylum in Cuba. I was there as an exile in Cuba, and I lived there as an exile.
Now, were there any particular Cuban leaders who gave you this asylum, or was it just the, in general, the government there?
Well, actually, this political exile was given to me under the direct orders of Fidel Castro himself.
So now he had to go through a political exile, and he's over in Cuba with Fidel Castro. Ain't that where he was, Cuba? Whatever. He over there by Fidel Castro, and this is where he's going to continue his work and continue to spread the message of revolution over to America. This is where the Black Panthers are going to pick up his revolution. But remember, it didn't start with Robert Williams. The Mississippian Panthers, we're going to get on that one of these weeks, but the Mississippian Panthers were another group, of Black people, indigenous Indians who fought back. So the Black Panthers has a deep-rooted history, but one of their influences was Robert Williams. So check it out. Now he's in Cuba.
Havana, Cuba, free territory of the Americas. Radio Free Dixie invites you to listen to the free voice of the South. Stay with us for music, news, and commentary by Robert F. Williams.
He came up with the idea of Radio Free Dixie. And we had to fight. He had to fight hard within Cuba to get it on the air. But eventually Fidel Castro, when he told Fidel Castro what his idea was, he said, well, we'll see what we can do. So finally they allowed him to have the Radio Free Dixie program.
Radio Free Dixie is presenting the soul side of rock in the year of fire. The social conscious rock and roller is calling attention to social injustice. Yes, these new cats are no slackers. We are tuned in to their wavelength, and we dig them plenty.
You can hear it throughout the South. You can hear it in New York City. You can hear it in Seattle. You can hear it in Los Angeles. And, they're trying desperately to jam it. And eventually, between the Cuban censorship and the FBI and the CIA jamming it, it reaches a much smaller audience eventually.
But we would just almost embrace the radio just to hear his voice. That was the treat of the weekend.
Radio Free Dixie is proud to present these seldom heard songs of brutal oppression and dehumanization that no American radio station dares broadcast.
The music was fantastic. The jazz was fantastic. And sometimes now I can hear those songs echoing in my mind, Watermelon Man and The Protest, Nina Simone, Mississippi Goddamn.
Alabama's got me so upset. Tennessee made me lose my rest.
I don't want to get the copyright.
Robert F. Williams, Afro-American refugee from racial oppression in the USA, former official of the NAACP, author of the book Negros with Guns.
Presently, we must use whatever method in our possession. We must make use of the gas bomb, the lycan, the ice pick, the switchblade, the axe, the hatchet, the razor, the brick, and the bullet. Next year, we shall meet machine gun with machine gun, hand grenade with hand grenade, in a new spirit of meeting violence with violence.
Now, did you ever feel that what you were doing was in any way act of treason or unpatriotism towards your country, towards the United States of America, or had you abandoned America? Did you feel you were now a Cuban, or what?
Now, I don't believe any man who lives under tyranny in a government can ever be truthfully accused of treason. Treason can only come when a man is entitled to the rights and privileges and he is protected by his government, and then he betrays that government. Then he can be accused of treason. But when the government betrays its trust to its people, then the government is what is guilty, is the guilty party to treason. And I consider the government of the United States to have failed the black people in America in protecting the rights of black people and the enforcement of the Constitution.
This is just my opinion. The fact that he had to flee to Cuba, but then also not only flee to Cuba, then he had to continue the revolution from there. I think that was strategically done, and I also think that if they had not allowed these white folks in any of their stuff, they probably would have been better off. I don't care if it was the white man or the white woman. That was the biggest mistake they could have made, period.
The lawlessness that broke out with unbridled fury in the Watts section of Los Angeles was deplored by responsible Negroes and whites alike.
In the spirit of 76, in the spirit of Los Angeles, let our people take to the streets in fierce numbers. And in the cause of freedom and justice, let our battle cry be heard around the world. Freedom, freedom, freedom now or death.
I think all of us kind of during that period felt a certain amount of the romance of revolution. And we felt that it might work, it might overcome the odds, where everyone was telling you can't use these tactics because you're only 1/10 of the population. Well, you look around the world during that time and you saw in Castro's Cuba that a small group of revolutionaries had overcome a government. So it seemed, well, maybe it's possible.
But that was the hijack, to tell you are only a small percentage of the. Remember, they had us believing they had more white people in America than blacks. That has never been the case from the beginning of time. But it's psychological warfare. If they tell us that, we'll believe it. If we believe it, we'll act accordingly. Regardless if we were 1/10 of the population, you still could make noise. But that wasn't really the case. It was just what they told us to keep us docile. Oh, so annoying.
Negros with Guns came out in 1962, and it's really probably the most important intellectual influence on the Black Panther Party. It's kind of a founding document of the Black Power movement in many ways.
I think that influence is something that comes through the 1960s as a theme, ending up with the Black Panther Party, which is the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense. And again, I think that's something that has very strong roots in American traditions.
But I tell you, that book, just the very title, I thought was so great. Negroes with Guns. We've always had white power, and no one's quivered in the face of that. But all of a sudden, black power comes. A small minority, 10% of the population, says we want black power, and the country goes into paroxysms of fear and condemnation and scorn.
They were becoming more radical. They were becoming less patient with the nonviolent and patient philosophy that was coming out of the civil rights movement. And they saw him, because you have to remember, they saw Robert Williams as a heroic figure.
Mm-hmm.
He was brave. He stood up, spoke his mind. He was a man.
Broadcasting from Hanoi.
I know that they rebroadcast some of our Radio Free Dixie on Radio Hanoi.
It is a crying shame that hypocritical and double-dealing Mr. Charlie has the audacity to rabble-rouse racist America to the point of accepting massive violence against the innocent people of Vietnam while brainwashing the oppressed Negro to adhere to the masochistic philosophy of nonviolence. Yes, Big Daddy orders a semi-state of war footing and dispatches elite troops to defend Mr. Charlie's version of democracy in Vietnam, while Afro-Americans bleed and die from the lack of police protection in the black ghettos of racist America. What a sham. What blatant hypocrisy.
I was concerned about what the government was going to say about all of our speeches.
And I say this as a person who grew up in New Orleans around a lot of Vietnamese people. I get it because we're such nice people that we felt like, oh my God, these people are innocent. We shouldn't be out there fighting these people. But the Vietnamese people don't fuck with us. I got to say it. I grew up with them. Don't get me wrong. They never lived amongst us. They never cohabitated with us. At most, we seen them at school. We never seen them at no stores. We never seen them at no parties, no events, no nothing. The most of the time you seen the Vietnamese people was at school. The Vietnamese people don't fuck with no niggas. And the niggas don't fuck with no Vietnamese. So I don't think the message should have been, oh, because they're innocent. We don't give a fuck. The point is they sending us over there on dummy missions so that we can, you know what I mean? So that we won't make it. But don't ever get it twisted. The Vietnamese people do not fuck with no niggas. Nowhere. And every war we go through, we take their people home. That's why Vietnamese people are here, because of the Vietnam War. Okay? Vietnamese people don't fuck with niggas. Nobody fuck with niggas. Let's get that clear. Nobody fuck with niggas. I don't care who it is. They might act like it. They might rub shoulders with you. Woo-doo. Nobody fuck with niggas. So our mindset has to shift. It's not that, oh my God, they're innocent. Fuck that. We don't care about that. How is it affecting us? That's got to be the mindset moving forward. If it was me, my message would have been, we don't need to go to Vietnam because fuck, why would we fight their war when they don't fuck with us over here? Like Muhammad Ali and Malcolm was saying, it wouldn't be, oh, because they innocent. Girl, fuck them people. Listen, what we going around there for and we fighting over here? Vietnamese people don't fuck with niggas. I can't speak on no other group of people, but I know I used to have more interactions with Vietnamese people than white folks when I grew up in New Orleans. The Vietnamese people don't fuck with niggas. Never did, never will. Let's really be clear about that.
And I knew that we had to continue doing something, and that was our way of fighting the injustices that were going on against our people in the United States. And so I was not so concerned that I was willing to stop doing what we had to do.
Well, he was more of a pawn than a player in the Cold War. He's, the Cuban Revolution prided itself on its racial egalitarianism. So to shelter the fleeing black activist from the South was help them politically. But that was not a perfect marriage, because Robert wasn't a communist and he wasn't anybody's party line man in any sense.
As an individual, they treated me quite well in Cuba. But with some of the party people, I had some problem. They took the position that my position would drive a wedge between the white working class and the black if blacks used my method of self-defense. So as a result of this, there was this friction. So and then I had to leave Cuba.
I wanna go home. Oh, how
I wanted to stay in China until I could return to the home in the United States.
The Chinese people warmly welcome Mr. Robert Williams, noted Afro-American leader, and Mrs. Williams. Wherever they go, Mr. and Mrs. Robert Williams are cordially welcomed by the Chinese people, who deeply admire the just struggle of the black people in the United States.
He kept trying to return to the United States, but he kept being turned down. He approached the Swiss to intercede for him, and because the United States did not want him back in the United States. The whole idea was to get rid of him as a leader of a movement. And I missed our people because I was thrown into an environment of total strangers. I made friends wherever I went, but I missed mostly just the comradeship of my friends and family.
I feel you, man.
What you have to understand about the decision of the United States government to let Robert Williams come home in 1969 is that the Nixon administration was moving towards opening diplomatic relations with China.
Chairman Mao Zedong, our most beloved and respected leader, comes to the rostrum on top of Tiananmen Gate Tower. Mr. and Mrs. Robert Williams are among the distinguished guests on the rostrum.
Mind you, they're not the real Chinese. They're the imposters.
This was in the period of the Cultural Revolution. It was China was closed off and chaotic. And the State Department very much wanted to know what Robert Williams knew.
Robert Williams, a fugitive and one of the first of the black militants, is being supplied with an entire jetliner for his return tomorrow from a self-exile in communist and African lands. He's wanted on 8-year-old kidnapping charges in North Carolina involving a white couple allegedly taken hostage during racial disorders. Williams has been held in Great Britain for the last week since airlines refused to honor his ticket to Detroit, the base of a black separatist movement which made him its president. The airlines feared a possible hijacking or civil demonstrations. At the request of the U.S. government, Trans World Airlines changed its position, but said a special flight would be arranged to carry only Williams and his lawyer. Their tickets cost $282 each. The flight will cost TWA about $20,000.
Last night, I went to sleep in Detroit City, and I dreamed about...
I'm just silencing the music, y'all. So on some political stuff, they was able to get him back.
In some ways, the CIA really expects Robert to step to the fore and become the central figure in the Black Power movement. They essentially say, Malcolm X is dead, Stokely Carmichael, Eldridge Cleaver, they're out of the country. There's this vacuum of leadership, and they fully expect Robert Williams to step into it.
He never wanted to be a leader. He never really wanted to be in that lead role. He was following what he felt he needed to follow and had to follow to try to get change, but he didn't want to be the one to be out front all the time.
I wanna go home.
He's been abroad at that point for 8 years, and he's dragged his wife and family halfway around the world, and he's tired.
He give me Lawrence Fishburne tease, huh? In 1970, Robert Williams advised the State Department on normalizing relations with China. So he started to be a liaison between the United States and China. That's what it's given. Probably was part of his agreement. By 1976, North Carolina had dropped all charges against Robert Williams.
He was famous. He was a poster. He was the icon of Black Power. But he went, they moved out to Western Michigan and went to Baldwin, and he joined the local NAACP, and he spoke at colleges and at prisons. He tried to be a sort of a local community person.
You like to say that, huh?
Yeah.
Mabel.
One
more shot in here. I hope when you get what?
You hope you get there, that's all.
That's what he hopes. Oh, man.
Seeing him as a figure who managed to stay active, stay vocal, stay militant during a long period of time when the cost of doing that was tremendous, makes him to me a heroic figure.
He used to tell a story about George Washington going out and fighting and then returning to Mount Vernon and live out his days as a gentleman farmer or whatever. And he said, I would like to have in our race somebody who struggled against the system and went home to Mount Vernon. And so Monroe was kind of like his Mount Vernon. 1994, Rob began to have some medical problems. And when we went to have a physical exam, we found out that he had prostate cancer.
I knew it was
He
cancer.
got over that, and we were talking about my retirement and returning to Monroe.
I knew
But
it was
he
cancer.
started slowing down a little after then, and suddenly he had started having night sweats, and the Hodgkin's disease came on very quickly. Oh, he made me promise that should he die first, I should take him back to Monroe.
All right now. By the river. Listen. This is crazy. So I guess he's buried in Monroe, North Carolina. This must be his grave.
I've been running.
I can't play the music, so that's why I'm muting it. Yes, 1925, 1996.
Long time. No. Ooh, yes it is.
This is crazy. I think this is where it ends, y'all. But this is the thing. This is the thing. Robert Williams was one of those men, one of those black men who fought back in a time where we were taught everybody just kind of like sat there and took it. We didn't fight back. We didn't have no beef with nobody. We didn't, you know what I mean? We let these white folks, according to media and news today, they'll have y'all think that we just sat there and let these white folks come burn crosses in front of our door, rape and pillage our women. They came and did all these horrible, horrible things, and we did nothing. But the fact of the matter is we've never stopped fighting. When we were classified as Indians, we were fighting. We were classified as Negroes, we were fighting. They just don't highlight those things, because if they do, you might get an idea, and they don't want you to get those ideas. They don't want you to feel like you're not subservient to them and you have to use them. They want you to feel like without them, you're nothing. Okay? And when I ran across Robert Williams and I ran across this whole thing with the Negroes, because I ran across the book first, and I need to buy the book. But I ran across the book first, Negroes with Guns. But when I ran across it, it made me say, well, what's going on with this? And then I looked into it and I saw Robert Williams. I'm just like, okay, now we get the face behind this whole Negroes with Guns movement. He was ready to go to war and live and die about that shit during a time where we were taught that everybody was holding hands saying, we shall overcome. And the fact of the matter is that wasn't the case for everybody. Everybody wasn't on that we shall overcome shit. Some people was ready to go to war about that shit. Okay? Now, I'm not encouraging violence or anything of that nature. But I am saying whatever we need to do is already in us. Screen Queen, thank you for the super chat. Let Boo cook. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. And Deserving One, thank you for the super sticker. I appreciate you. That was the story of Robert Williams. I'm going to get back into my documentary bag. I have to wait until I'm no longer working. And that'll be June 6th will be my last day at work. So with that being said, I'm in transition. So I'm kind of here, but I'm not here. But ultimately, once I'm able to really get into my bag, I'm going to get back into my documentaries. I'm going to get back into all this stuff. Book club. I love that somebody brought up that idea. We're going to get back to the book club and all those other things. But just let this be a lesson to y'all. We weren't some pushover, rollover, nothing ass niggas. We fought. And we will continue to fight. We just lost right now, but we'll find our way. Trust me. Let me also say this. I want us to really think about us becoming unified versus us separating. We got our own shit. Black men got their shit. Black women got their shit. It don't matter who started it. All that matters is at this moment, this is not the time for us to be separate. Let's please find a way to even put our differences aside temporarily to come together for the greater cause, because that's the only way it's going to work. It cannot work with just black women alone. It cannot work with just black men alone. Unless we come together, it's never going to work. That's all I will say with that. With that being said, love y'all down to the ground. I'm about to Josh y'all up out of here. Y'all enjoy the rest of y'all Friday evening. I will see y'all tomorrow. We're going to go live and talk about some stuff as well. And I have some pre-recorded content I want to put out as well. But I love y'all down to the ground. I'll see y'all on the next one. Peace.
Mic check, 1 2 1 2. We live, baby. Come on. That's right. Okay. Can you hear me now? Oh, let's go. It's your boy Big Chew, the voice of the beat. You know what I want? Blaze up. Come on, Blaze up.
It's the beat for me.
Wah 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 wah. For your guy, for your B-O-Y. Drop it for your guy, for your B-O-Y. Do it for your guy, for your B-O-Y. Come on, baby, we are. For your boy. For your boy. Also for your boy. Fix it for your boy. Drop it for your lift it up. Then it bust it open, lift it up. Yeah, come on, lift it up. Then it bust it open for your B-O-Y. Then it for your rockin' for your lift it up, baby. Mix it with your bustin' up. Come on, Blaze, you know. Drop me a nasty beat.
Mr. Carroll, how you give the voodoo doll time to talk? I don't get no fucking time to talk.
Who the voodoo doll is?
The nigga you just had up here.